Hi, I'm Ross Wilson. I'm a certified crop advisor with the Sauble Bayfield Conservation. In our ongoing efforts to promote and enhance our soil, water, and our living things as part of our conservation strategy, we're always trying to promote BMPs and provide education to the public. And one way we could do that is through our education department, but another way is through our online website at www.abca.ca. Occasionally we have the opportunity to join with other partners, and today I have with me Jeff Stager from Radio Waterloo, and he's able to share with you some of the details of his audio presentation.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Ross. My name is Jeff Stager. I'm from the Waterloo region, and I'm a member of a community radio station. And we're just delighted to get people, situations like this, out in the field talking to real people about what they're doing. This is for my show, which is called the Agriculture Show. And but in general, our station really likes to hear from people if you have an idea for a show. But once again, Ross, I want to thank you so much for letting us arranging this in your test plot today, and just give us a really good description of agriculture and what you're trying to attempt here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff. Look forward to future opportunities. This is Ross Wilson with the Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority. You're listening to the Agriculture Show on CKMS Radio 102.7 Radio Waterloo. The Agricultural Show is brought to you by the Waterloo Federation of Agriculture. The Waterloo Federation of Agriculture represents the farmer producers in the region of Waterloo. Our goal is to promote the farm community in support of the innovation, hard work, and compassion that is emblematic of the region of Waterloo. The WFA strives to bring together the policy needs of the farmer with the needs of society.
Okay, it seems to have worked. We're at Clinton, Ontario today, folks, for episode 172 of the Agriculture Show. And I'm sitting here with Tim Cummings and Ross Wilson. And we're going to talk a little bit about a really cool thing that's happening. And I think our urban listeners and our rural listeners will be really interested in this topic. It's cover crops. And so today's show, 172, we're out in the field and we're broadcasting live, and it's a beautiful day, Ross. Thanks for coming out and doing this. I think we're going to have a lot of fun, and hopefully it'll pass along some really cool information to our listeners.
It's my pleasure, Jeff. Thanks a lot for inviting us to be a part of your show and help spread our message as well.
Okay. As you know, folks, we really like to bring our story of agriculture to the public, and so we're doing that today. And you might have heard about cover crops and so on, but first of all, we're going to get to know our guest. Ross, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? I'd like to ask my guests, how many people sit around the Wilson family Christmas table?
It's a complicated answer because there are several tables at the Wilson family Christmas. There are 8 kids in my family and 17 grandkids. So in days gone by, we had the adult table and we had the kids table, and now we have the adult table, the kids table, and then some of the other tables sprinkled around. So somewhere between 1 and 4.
Oh my gosh! Do you have any Christmas traditions? Are you, for instance, do you open your presents the night of Christmas or the day?
We've always been opening Christmas presents the morning after, like Christmas morning. It was always anticipation to run down those stairs and see what was underneath the tree.
Sometimes people like to sit down and they might play a bunch of board games, or some people like to maybe hear a quick sing-song of some sort. Any other lovely traditions at your house? Do you make a really killer deal of chili con carne or something?
After we have our traditional Christmas gift opening, we generally have a brunch.
Yeah.
And then shortly after brunch is done, then we'll dress the turkey up, and that's been a tradition to put it together. And then in the afternoon, while we're enjoying either the gifts of the day or other activities, it fills the house with these beautiful aromas, and we can enjoy them for 3 or 4 hours until the turkey's ready. So it's good traditions to have.
Yeah, very nice. Any other fun hobbies you've got? Do you happen to be building like a boat in your basement, or planning to scale Mount Everest or some other outrageous thing?
No, no. The most outrageous that I do is I do long distance running, and so this year I've just completed a 1,000-kilometer virtual run, which is the equivalent of running across Tennessee.
Wow.
We had it started on May the 1st, ended on August the 31st, and out of about 20,000 people who registered, about 14,000 finished it. So
Yeah.
it was a great opportunity to get people out and see a positive side of the COVID crisis.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty impressive. I'm always glad to ask that question of our listeners, of our guests on the show, because it really shows that we're talking about agriculture, and these are real people doing real things, and Ross is living his life there doing stuff, and he's got a great message for our urban and rural listeners. So we can come back to this. We'll find out what else Ross does, but right now we're going to finish our segment 1, and we'll play a song or two and some promos, and then we'll come back and talk some more about agriculture here in Clinton, Ontario. Just stay locked in. And we're back. We'll play that music on our podcast when I get it edited up and put that songs in there. But for our live show right now, we're just going to keep on talking. So we're back, and we're sitting here with Ross and Tim in a cornfield in Clinton, near Clinton, Ontario. And Ross, would you like to very kindly tell our listeners what it is that you do? You've got some nice gear on there, nice hat, and Tim as well. Tell us about what you do and why we're here today.
I'm a certified crop advisor, so my job title is Water and Soils Resource Coordinator.
Yeah.
And years ago, we did part of a conservation strategy, and one of the things that the stakeholders in our watershed thought was important was soil, water, and living things.
Yeah.
So one of my roles is to protect and enhance those three things in particular, the soil, the water, and the living things. My role in particular is several-fold. I deal with some flooding aspects in one component of it. I also have an active role in our erosion control structures.
Yeah.
But in this capacity right now, we have an environmental monitoring program, and that helps us just promote best management practices for our agricultural farmers.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, what conservation authority are we in here? What do we? Why? Tell us about our location here.
This is the Salvo Bayfield Conservation Authority watershed.
Yeah.
And it's, for those listeners who aren't quite aware of it, if you drove 25 minutes from Grand Bend in any direction, you would cover about 90% of our watershed.
Okay.
So we're sitting on the shores of Lake Huron. We have 3 or 4 water courses that drain into Lake Huron, and that's some of our impetus for improving soil and water and living things in our watershed.
Yeah. So, so you see, folks, there are lots happening in the countryside to keep our Ontario and our Great Lakes water clean and good for the future generations. So the website is abc.ca.on.ca. I see you got your promo card up on top of your hat there, and people can go there and find out more about not only this program but other programs and what the authority's doing.
Our education, our website is one way that we can help educate the public and provide some information to them. And in the last little while, we've changed our URL to abca.ca.
Yeah.
And it was a format that was more friendly with current users who use more mobile devices, so tablets and phones. And this new website, our colleague Tim has done a great job of helping set those up so it's accessible to a larger variety of people.
Yeah. Well, it's important. It's great work happened, but if you're not able to get the message out, then it's kind of a shame not to have done that part of the whole project too. It's part of the whole project development and demands when you do something is to get the message out.
We've got a great message, and we can't keep it in a bubble. It's got to get out to the people, and people are very excited to hear the message too. And so as a result, we do our very best. We have a whole education department who goes out, a big focus on kids.
Yes.
Like elementary age kids, and it goes everything from bus trips that they'll come in to have a look at our facilities, and they'll run day programs, or our education staff in other years anyway have gone out to schools. Sometimes it's things like running an owl prowl. So we actually call owls in. We have a phenomenally successful turtle, baby turtle hatchling release program.
Yeah. Wow.
Phenomenally successful. We have a snowshoe program, and for a lot of kids, this is their first opportunity to be and do anything outside. They may be raised in certain environments where they just don't have access to that, and the green space that they might find in their local playground is not exactly the same as our green space here. So it's a great opportunity, and we're all very proud to be a part of that education program.
It sometimes can be a real delight to teach kids because usually they just want to know everything about everything. They got their attention, they got energy, and as long as it doesn't get out too far out of hand for mere mortals to deal with, it's a wonderful experience to watch kids see something and ask questions about that they never would have talked about before. Must be very rewarding.
In some cases, it's maybe the first and maybe the only opportunity they'll get to get in boots and get into some water.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
They'll get their boots dirty, they'll get their hands dirty, and this is, like I say, it might be their one and only opportunity to do that.
All right.
And the kids, when you see them, like you said, full of enthusiasm, they're beaming from eye to eye. When you see them catching a tadpole for the first time, or catching a crayfish, or something like that, it helps them appreciate one component of the living things.
Yeah. Well, this is good news. So we'll certainly come back to those ones later on in our show. We'll finish up segment number 2 here and come back and just stay locked in, folks. Freshen up that coffee. Listen to the Agriculture Show here on CKMS Radio 102.7, radioardu.ca. Okay, we're back. Oh, that's a good signal there. My goodness. Well, okay, we're back, and thanks for listening today to the Agriculture Show here on CKMS. We're sitting in a small test plot in close to the village of Clinton, Ontario. Lovely area. This is the Blue Water Country, I believe we call it, right? Ross, what do you market the area as? What does the municipality call itself here?
We're in the municipality of Blue Water.
The municipality of Blue Water,
Yeah,
wow.
there was an amalgamation of townships a number of years ago, and Blue Water was kind of, reminiscent of the beautiful Blue Lake. You drive along Highway 21, you look out over Lake Huron, you see how big it is, and you see how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
Seeing the sunsets go down over the lake, it's fantastic.
Yeah, we're very lucky here. It's Canada's West Shore, I guess. Ontario's West Shore.
Correct.
That's a nice marketing. So we're in a test plot, and the topic today is 60-inch corn rows with a cover crop between. Ross, what would be your message to people, what's happening here? Let's imagine some guy walks in off the street here and he says, hey, what do you guys know about agriculture? What would you tell him?
Well, by a little bit of background, again, is tying it into our conservation strategy. Our goal is to protect and enhance living things, soil, and water. And because something like 95% of our watershed is agriculture, we need to work within the agricultural environment. And part of our process is to promote best management practices that help keep the soil healthy, keep the water healthy, and then the living things will be healthy as a result of those two other things being healthy. And so one of the most important best management practices is the use of cover crops. And the use of cover crops is, they have a lot of benefits that we can talk about at some point in time during this conversation. But they do a lot of good, but they don't, it's difficult to frequently get them established, particularly in corn. So corn is such a tall crop, it shades out a lot of the sunlight getting down to the ground where the cover crops are. And so as a result, we have not been very successful. There's been 3 or 4 different things that farmers have tried. Farmers are just doing a fantastic job. We have a cover crops workshop every January, and it's filled to capacity every year. Farmers are really doing their best, and they're not, some of the solutions are not very easy, but these guys are going out taking risks. risks. They are working with us, and this is one of the projects that a farmer has voluntarily worked with us and at his own kind of expense to be able to find a system that can work in corn. And we wanted to try seeing if wider corn, so normally corn is grown in 30-inch centers, and if we widen that to 60-inch, it'll potentially let more sunlight down to the ground, and then we'll get cover crops established, and they're all the good things that cover crops do for the soil and for the water, then we can achieve those benefits.
Yeah, and some of these things, folks, are things like making sure that you get a yield, but you don't do it in an aggressive fashion that it damages the soil. And so this is some of the types of research that goes on to continue to fine-tune the regular progression of the knowledge base, how to actually do the really good stewardship of the land, and consistent with society's values and consistent with the farmer's need to make a living at what he's doing. And so what you're doing here is a big part of that. You don't see 60-inch corn rows very far, and I know our listeners who are listening to us on the radio, you can't see it, but this is great looking corn here, folks. It's just as good as you'll see. It has it's well cobbed out. We're in the middle of September. The silks are all brown. I think if people know what silks are. If you buy sweet corn, that's that fluffy stuff into the cob. And so this crop is in the final stages of maturation. And I don't know, Ross, did you fold back a corn cob and see what kind of milk layer was on it? That's going to give us an idea. I'm sure it's still not black layer. I'm sure of that.
No, I don't think we're quite at that stage of maturity yet.
Yeah.
But it's coming along great. You know, one of the biggest issues that we figured that we would have is a yield penalty. We take a yield hit.
Right.
And I don't think we're going to really see that with this particular crop.
I would agree.
It's doing a great job, and it's important to note not only the successes but the failures of this too, and then share these things with the other farmers. You know, if we can each learn from our own successes and failures, well, then we can move this ahead and make it more industry wide. It's a highly unusual at this point in time. I bet there isn't 200 or 300 acres in all of Ontario that are in 60-inch corn right now. So we're looking forward to the final results. We take a yield on it to make sure that how it compares to other parts of the field that were planted just in a conventional manner, and then we'll be able to compare and see how they did. So we're very eagerly looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting. Now, this plot is not just a one-year plot. You want to do this in the second year to follow up on something. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. One of the main benefits of cover crops is that they cover the soil over the winter time, hence the name cover crops. However, a cover crop can actually produce quite a number of different benefits, and some of those benefits just include conditioning the soil, just making it so light and fluffy and easy to work. And if it's easy to work, then it's easy for roots to get through. In most projects that I've come across that dealt with the 60-inch corn, they only monitored the corn yield. They didn't measure all the goodness that the cover crop did for the following crop.
Right.
And so this is why we felt it was very important to go through to that second year to say, okay, yes, we got the benefits of the soil being covered, but did we get the benefits of the soil creating, the cover crops creating better soil conditions? And so we'll be able to monitor the yield of the following year, the crop of the following year.
Okay. Well, that's good news. So at least 2 years in this plot. If you get lucky, maybe you can find a way to do the third year. I'm not too sure. I'm sure you have to go step by step on it. But in a perfect world, you'd just run a crop like this forever, wouldn't you? Just keep on fine-tuning it.
Fine-tuning it until it gets to be widespread.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest challenges that we have. It's great for you to demonstrate something on a small scale. This whole plot is only 6 acres. But if we can find a way to make it work, and we're getting some success at it, the bigger advantage is really found when it gets spread across the whole province.
Yeah.
So for example, one of the best BMPs, the agricultural BMPs that we have right now, is actually keeping wheat in our rotation. So for example, the 2 main crops that we grow are corn and soybeans. And by adding a third crop into that rotation, it allows us to grow cover crops, it allows us to handle manure, it allows us better opportunity for weed control. But the problem with wheat is that it's what they call poverty grass. It's the least profit making of the whole entire rotation. And so anything that we can do to have folks keep wheat in the rotation is a very positive thing, because it affects then hundreds of thousands of acres,
Yes.
not just 100 acres here and there across the province.
Well, there's a lot. So this can lead on to a lot of different and exciting changes in management, and also in preserving our soils, our biosphere here in southern Ontario. We're near Clinton, but these principles would exist all across our province of Ontario, where there's ways to crop that both satisfy urban needs and rural needs. So good stuff here.
Each region can be quite specific, and the solutions that we find here on these particular soils may not necessarily work as well or work the same. Let's say, for example, down in Essex County, where they have flat, heavy soils and they have more of a growing season. And the same solution may not work in a shorter season. You go further north, you go further east, there's less growing season, maybe it's sandier soils. So they may have their own challenges, but at least if we can share some of our successes and failures with them, then they can fine tune it for their particular region, for their particular agriculture.
Listeners may have heard it in the press and so on, issues around intensive agriculture and monoculture. For purposes of what we're talking about here today, this is a way to do crop rotation, and at the same time to keep their farms going. We're not talking in Ontario a situation of monoculture, which you would probably associate with some place like in Brazil, where they mow down all kinds of rainforest. That is not the case in Ontario by any measure. But our soils could benefit by a more wide range of crops in it. To that end, as Ross pointed out, corn, beans, and wheat are the staple of Ontario, and on top of that, occasionally, and good acreage, of hayland. Well, wouldn't it be great to have those same effects by that longer rotation happen here with wider corn rows? That's one way to do that, to get that extra green. That's plant roots in the ground, live roots. I think this is the key. Yeah? And so that's how this fits into agriculture for our listeners. I often like to tell listeners, you know what, it's easy for you and I to get talking in the vernacular, and unfortunately the acronyms are getting so short I can't follow them anymore. But for purposes of our show, we want to just talk in terms of agriculture 101 for our listeners, so they got a kind of an idea that what the heck we're talking about. And you know, a lot of listeners, they're great, because not only that, they're interested, but they may have tried to grow a garden. They're kind of well aware of what can happen.
Cover crops aren't just for agricultural fields. You know, there's a lot of benefit that the cover crops can produce in your own garden as well.
Right.
You've got some vegetable garden, you take out your lettuce, you plant it first, your radishes, things like that. You take them out when they're done, and you could put a cover crop in there. Some of the cover crops are beautiful. Like, they really are beautiful. You know, who doesn't like sunflowers? We're sitting in the field and there's some crimson clover. It's beautiful. If you like yellow or white, you can put mustard. There's just a range, depending on what you want to gain out of the cover crops. They can have advantage for any soils, whether that's garden soils or whether that's farm soils.
Do you think there would be any study whether this is good for pollinators?
It depends on the species.
Okay.
Not all cover crops or our regular crops support a pollinator habitat. So, for example, a lot of our grasses don't support a pollinator habitat. But if you take a look at any of our clovers, crimson clover, Brucine clover, red clover, white clover, any of those, the pollinators really enjoy it. And you've probably all had honey made from buckwheat or from white clover, red clover.
I'm not too sure you probably noticed it, but have you ever noticed pollinators flying down between these rows? Look at these flowers in this?
Not this particular site, but
Right.
another site that we work on. It had about 4 pounds per the acre of sunflowers,
All right.
and I took a video of it, and it was just fantastic to see the bees just humming. And on a quiet day, you can hear a hum. you literally, you get away from the roads and you can hear it being alive with the sounds of the pollinators. Yeah.
Well, this is good. So we're going to keep moving right along and play another song here in our great list of songs that Tim has helped put together, and Ross as well. So we'll play a song and come back for segment number 4 of our show today. And just thanks again for listening in. You could be doing a lot of different things on a Tuesday afternoon, but you're here with us, and we really appreciate it. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back, folks. You're listening to the Agriculture Show here at CKMS. It's episode 272. We're near Clinton, Ontario, and talking to Ross and Tim here in a beautiful test plot on the outskirts of the village of Clinton. And we've talked about Christmas, what he does for what Ross does for Christmas. We talked about what he's doing. He's working for Ausable, and I think what else? Anybody else in Ausable? You're an employee of Ausable Conservation. That's what I'm getting at.
Correct. There's about 25 to 30 of us. We run across various programs from stewardship. We have a planning department. We have a corporate that kind of looks after everything. We have field crews that go out and do some of the work. So it's a joint effort. We're small enough that we can do a great amount of work, but we're able to kind of leverage our smallness with our neighboring authorities, and we work hand in hand with them on many occasions.
So then we talked a little bit more about what Ross's message to agriculture is if some guy just walked in and want to talk about what the heck we're doing. Now this part of the show, segment number 4, is one I reserve for our listeners, because inevitably as your host, I forget to ask something that our guests really want to talk about. So with that kind of an introduction, Ross, what else you'd like to bring to our listeners, to anybody who's tuning in today or going to listen to this our time together in the future? What do you want to talk about?
I think one of the key messages that I think your listeners would enjoy is just the recognition that this work that gets done here, we are only one of the partners involved in it. And frequently there are funding partners. Sometimes that's the province, sometimes that's feds, sometimes it's a private organization. We work with the Herb Family now, and they've provided some money for our activities. And other partners we rely on for technical support, but probably the biggest component of recognition really needs to go to our local farmers that work with us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our work now would not get done without these folks, and we're always asking them to do, it always seems like we're asking them to do things during harvest time, during planting time, when it's always their busiest time of the year, and they still go out of their way to support these initiatives. And it's not just our current ones. We've worked on several locations, and 30 years ago some work was done by farmers, and you go on their farm and they're happy to show you about it.
Yeah.
And this was long before they didn't get any money from us. They didn't get any support from us. These were the land owners, the farmers themselves, that were committed to, keeping the environment clean and creating a healthy agriculture. And they did that all by themselves. They've been doing it for decades and will continue. There's just some fantastic farmers out there, and we couldn't do our work without their support.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's good to mention those people like that. And lots of people put a little extra effort in, because if you really believe in something, hey, this is a great opportunity, stuff like this, whatever your field is, but in this case, with agriculture, boy, it's really good to have guys that really want to step out there and be a part of this for the benefit of society, for their own benefit too.
It's motivating for us too, when you can go out on a field and you'll see what some of the folks are doing all on their own.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who see it more intimately. They see the difference. They see the improvement in water quality. They see the streams running cleaner now. They see, they're all on the lake shore, so they go down to the lake and they see maybe reduced algae or those sorts of things. We get a big storm, and 20 years ago, maybe the rivers were running chocolate milk, and now they're running clear.
Yeah.
And the farmers see that because they're attached to the earth. They see it day in, day out, and so that's what they need to be recognized for that.
Yeah, good stuff, good to mention. And of course, we wouldn't be here without the conservation authorities of Ontario. I think, what is there, 20 or 30 of them in the province, and their mandate is to identify and protect those waterways as best they can, given whatever resources the province feels they need at the time. It's a big discussion too. The Conservation Authorities of Ontario do support projects like this, because this is how you keep the water clean. Would that be fair to say?
That would be, I think we're up to mid 30s, 34, 35, 36 conservation authorities spread across most of what we call southern Ontario. And all of them have the mandate for flood prevention management. And some areas are more agriculturally oriented, so they will have more focuses in that area.
Yeah.
And each region, because it's the natural soil, water, and living things in those particular regions, those watersheds, are different than each other. So they have to be tailored, and that's why the staff are able to work with the problems that they have. The other thing you might want to note too is the conservation authorities are instruments of the municipalities.
Yes.
You know, we're not provincially governmentally, we're not a direct part of the provincial government. We're more an instrument of the municipalities, and so the municipalities will provide direction as well for them, and that might be upper tier or lower tier. So upper tier on the county level, they provide support in, for example, the Huron Clean Water Project. They put several $100,000 annually into supporting things like cover crops and water and sediment control basins and tree planting and pollinator gardens and a number of different things. But it's also our municipal partners who support our programs through various levy programs.
So it's a big project by a lot of different groups, conservation authorities, individual landowners, and other interested parties. I'm sure in the scheme of things there's probably even some, this may or may not lead to some other federal programs, for instance, or other large provincial organizations. It's all part of the same network that tries to solve the problems of Ontario and make things better in agriculture.
Ontario is one of the only jurisdictions in Canada that has something like conservation authorities. They don't exist anywhere else in Canada, and as a result, we're really the envy. If we go to presenting some of our work, I present internationally, and when you go there and they become aware of the sort of setup that we've got here, or you go to other provinces and you hear over and over again, "Oh, I wish we had something like that. I wish we had something like that." So yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Sometimes we don't know how lucky we got in the scheme of things. There's always controversy about conservation and what people think, but there's also better that than nothing at all. That's even worse. So, good stuff there. So anything else come to mind that would be worth mentioning? You picked a lovely day for us to be here. The sun is shining. It's not too hot. And we talked about maybe doing this in July or August. And that would have been just a real fit. What kind of year has it been for crops? If you just want to give our listeners an idea right here as of this exact moment, mid-September.
Well, it's depending on where you are. It was fairly dry for a while, and we had a good season to get started. And then it got dry, and some areas got rain and some didn't. And if you didn't, the crops got, some of them weren't looking very good, still aren't looking very good.
Yeah.
But if you got rain, and we had enough heat this summer, that part of it really kind of moved ahead, and it turned out pretty good. If there's any further word that I would give to your listeners, it would be to just go out and enjoy the green spaces around. Right. Every area in Ontario has conservation areas. Most of them don't charge to get into. You can just go visit, go take a walk. My daughter loves to just take her phone, download an app, and just wander through and identify trees.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of the trails, some of them are phenomenal trails. Some of them, we have a Morrison McNaughton Trail, and it's a fully wheelchair accessible. So we even have like a golf cart kind of a wheelchair kind of vehicle that allows people with reduced mobility to go out and enjoy that as well. So go out, appreciate nature. It's a wonderful opportunity, and there's lots of conservation areas out there to do that.
Yeah, very nice. Good words. Good suggestion. I can't believe you talked about your daughters. The apps you have out there in machine. It's crazy what you. I thought it was something else when you walking around doing the Mario thing for a while. Little Mario things would pop up. Tim's nodding his head. He gets it. He likes that kind of stuff. Well, that's good. Let's take another little break here, and then we'll come back and we've moved to the end of our show, and I just want to thank you again for listening in to episode 272, the Agriculture Show. Your host, Jeff Steger. Okay, thanks for coming. Let me start over here. Hello, everybody. It's the Agriculture Show, and we're near Clinton with Ross and Tim in a wonderful test spot location. They've picked a lot. I really want to thank you guys for picking the good weather. I don't know how you do it down here, but you managed to organize a really good weather day.
Just like this every day in Huron County.
Oh, I believe it. When you're called your Blue Water County, then you know this is like paradise.
Blue water, blue skies,
Yes,
Blue Lake.
I know. I'm envious. Very nice. We're just about into the last bit of our show. We got one more segment to go after this, and we just want to do a bit of wrap-up stuff in the break there while the music was playing. Talking to the guys here. You have some other topics you want to bring up, Ross? OMAF links and other stuff there. Please go ahead.
In order for us to do the work that we need to do to, protect and enhance our soil, water, living things,
Yep.
we implement things called BMPs, Best Management Practices, and they run quite a gamut. And the best way to get information on them is you can go to our website, which is abca.ca, but all you have to do is go to your various other local conservation authorities to their websites as well. It might be the Grand River Conservation Authorities, it might be the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, it might be the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, it might be Saugeen, it might be various other ones that have information that you're looking for. So there's lots of best management practices available at those websites. We work a lot in conjunction with OMAFRA, and so they have best management practices on various web pages.
Okay.
So they have a wonderful cover crop page. If you just Google OMAFRA and cover crops, you'll hit it right away.
Okay.
If you want to look like agricultural erosion or OMAFRA erosion, you'll come up with best management practices that can help reduce erosion.
So do that. Go into Google and type in OMAFRA, which is an acronym for the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture and Food and Rural Affairs, OMAFRA. And if you were to type those in and put an on.ca at the end of it, on.ca, then you would get to that site right off the bat. Oh my gosh, Ross, you had sent me two great links, and once you're on the OMAF site, for instance, you can type in cover crop, and that would be a good search term, you know?
Absolutely. It'll take you right to their main page, and then they've got probably 30 links off that page,
Okay.
depending on whether you want to know how to grow them, or what benefits they are, or which one you should use. And there's even a link to another website. A number of years ago, the Midwest Council of Cover Crops. So this was an organization of Midwest states. So that would be Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and maybe that was it. And they invited Ontario along as well, because we have similar climates to some of those.
Yeah.
And they put together this cover crop tool, and it'll help you decide what your goals are, and then how to choose the appropriate type mix of cover crop to get those benefits that you're looking for.
Oh, okay.
So there's a link on there. It's called the Midwest Cover Crop Calculator. So a fantastic tool.
Good advice. So if you're a farmer, that's a great resource. If you're just interested in cover crops in general, that's good for anybody who wants to go in there and just see where the state of the art is on how to do these things and take advantage of the cover crop. It did become a popular concept. The public knows well about it. Issues around how do you be good stewards of the soil, and that's one way you do it. So. Okay, then do we talk about any other hobbies you had? We got as far as you're not a rock climber, but you like to go cross country. No, not country, running. Anything else you want to tell us about? You don't have to be. Are you a curler in the wintertime or a hockey player?
I'm not a curler or a hockey player. I like seeing different landscapes. So I like to travel, but I like to travel by land.
Yes.
So I like going on, drives just to see what things look like, and that includes not only just Ontario. I spent 3 years ago, I spent a couple of weeks doing a tour on my motorcycle of the Corn Belt in the U.S. So I gave a presentation at a Soil and Water Conservation Society meeting in Madison, Wisconsin, beautiful place, and then drove out to through Minnesota to South Dakota and Nebraska, Iowa,
Yeah.
and hit Illinois and Indiana on the way back. And it was great. A lot of things you can learn out there are applicable here, and vice versa. So, for example, I went and talked to them. I would tell them some of our wheat yield, and they were just astounded.
Yeah.
You know, they were just astounded when you see some of the practices that they have here compared to what they do there. Ontario farmers do a fantastic job of being good stewards of the land. You know, there are many places that you go in the Midwest that I've toured through, and you see some of the practices. They're very, they're not nearly as good as the stewardship practices that we're doing here in Ontario. So kudos to the farmers. They really are doing a great job here.
Well, good plug for that, yeah, for traveling and seeing what's going on, and for how other jurisdictions are doing a lot in the same kind of work as you are. What's good long term for the soil. Okay, so what we're going to do, I think our last break here before we do our finally out or out. And thanks again for listening in. Episode 272. Today's guests, Ross Wilson and Tim Cummings. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and once again, thanks for listening in, folks. It's Agriculture Show, and we're in our last segment today. Hope you enjoyed all our music, a little bit of clips from here, there, and everywhere, and our discussion so far. We're just sort of kicking around. Maybe we ought to be doing this again next year, just because we're having too much fun doing this time, and we really want to see what's happening with this pod in another year or so. As you know, our last segment, it's kind of fun just to kind of get to know our guests on the way out. Ross, I'm going to ask you, what are you doing the next 2 hours, and then 2 days, and then 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, and 20 years? You want to go that far? What are you doing the next 2 hours?
Next 2 hours, I'm going to be working on another one of our demonstration/research projects.
Yeah.
Last year, we took part in a innovative drainage project. So we compared, we had a number of different drainage contractors. They installed kind of conventional style of drainage tiles, and in contrast, they installed kind of a new innovative style which drains along the contour instead of up and down the contours.
I see.
And we compare that to no drainage at all. And so we're just looking at the difference in surface water quality coming off those, and we're looking at the difference in water quality in the tiles. So does this new way of tiling the land create better water quality, or does it make any difference? So I'm going to be working on, we're still sorting out some of the details as to how we're doing that. The tile just got in the ground a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
And so this is the first crop, and it's all settling down, and so we're continuing to monitor some of those things.
You won't be going home having supper just yet, then. You've got some work at the office.
I got some out in the field, actually. It's the best kind of a day to have it, a beautiful fall day.
Did I mention how grateful I am you picked this great weather today for our show out in the field? What about the next 2 days? What are you up to?
Next 2 days, we have a number of different projects that we kind of stay on top of. One of the projects that we're doing is helping with a profitable mapping exercise. So every farmer knows, but the urban people may not know, that farms are not the same all across the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And some areas of the farm are more productive and therefore more profitable than other areas. And some areas may be generate so little profit that it's better out to take them out of production altogether.
Yes.
So I'll be working on doing that little exercise, creating a profit mapping, and then creating recommended best management practice to address with that.
Yeah, I've got that on my own property. I just think, why do I bother with that hillside?
Yeah, and that's sometimes the question. Sometimes it's a logistical issue in that it's a little corner of land that your equipment can't get in anymore. Sometimes it's adjacent to a wet spot that never yields. Sometimes it's eroded knolls. Sometimes it's adjacent to a bush. Mm-hmm. You know, there's sometimes raccoon or turkey or deer damage, or it just falls under the rain drip line of the trees, and the corn just never does well there.
Right.
So maybe it's better to take that out of production, but put it into a different kind of production. put it into pollinator habitat and you know, gain some of the benefits of that. It's
Yeah.
not wasted land per se.
Yeah.
It's just a different use of that land that it benefits everybody really.
And how about the next 2 weeks? You won't be you aren't going to go on one of your runs in the next 2 weeks, are you?
No, nothing terribly exciting like that.
Maybe I should wait till we get to the part where it's next 2 years or two, then you can talk about that. But the next 2 weeks, you're going to continue to monitor this thing, but you won't be harvesting yet. What are you doing the next 2 weeks, Ross?
We have a number of other projects that we need to do. So one of the things that we will do on this particular site in the next 2 weeks is we need to be able to put a number to how much cover crop we actually grow. And that's one of the challenges. With this type of a system, we can't get cover crops to grow. But we've got a way of harvesting the cover crop and weighing it, drying it, and then weighing it. And then we can kind of prove to ourselves that indeed we did get the cover crop established, and this is the kind of work that we've got. Bigger part of that is actually the roots, and we talked briefly about that. It's the above part, the ground part that we see, but it's the roots that do all the work.
Yeah.
So we'll be digging up some of these roots and we'll be looking at them. We did a YouTube video on it, and it'll be on our webpage as well. And it just shows you what different root structures do
Yeah,
to
I see
different
you
soils.
got some kale, or is this radish or kale that you got?
It's a forage brassica.
Okay. And of course, I see the red clovers here.
Yeah, crimson
Crimson
clover.
clover. And so there's lots of stuff happening here. And so you're going to try to figure out if, just for curiosity, this mix that you chose, was there any particular, was one of your favorite mix or one that you're just trying out, just throwing it at the wall here to see what happens?
On the field itself, we tried to do a number of different trials. So 6 acres in total, and we have 6 1-acre treatments.
Yeah.
And so one thinking was, well, we should have a cover crop that will benefit the corn crop this year. So we added legumes in it. So for your readers, legumes provide nitrogen to the corn crop, which is a grass. They have a high requirement for nitrogen, so the legumes can produce some of that. Another way of thinking is, well, let's forget about the cover crop benefiting the corn this year. Let's focus on how much good we can do to the following crop next year.
Right.
And part of that was, okay, if a little cover crop is good, well then is a lot of cover crops better? And so we doubled up the population in the seeding rate on our cover crops on one of the plots to see if that makes any difference. So we have 6 different questions that are asked here,
Yeah.
and hopefully we'll have 6 different answers in 2 years from now.
And 2 months from now?
2 months from now, we'll be trying to wrap things up. So a lot of our monitoring programs, the winter causes them real problems. You get freezing, you can't get out to do them. So we have to get out into the field. If we have a lot of equipment out in the field, we either have to remove it from the field,
Yeah.
or we have to winterize it in the field. And so there's a fair amount of things that have to be done just to get ready for going into winter. Some of our staff, not me in particular, but some of our staff, every time it rains, it triggers the water quality samplers, and they have to go out and check those.
Yep.
So they have to empty the samples, put new ones in. So that's what some of our staff are involved in as well.
And this particular test plot will be combined maybe in 2 months. It would not unreasonable. This is middle of September, middle of November might be a target date. Maybe my heart combine might be going through here at that time.
Middle November is probably the target rate. We'll have some specialized equipment in here to weigh the corn that comes off of these plots, so we're able to get a very accurate determination. We're working with the seed corn is supplied by one of the large seed corn producers, Pioneer,
Yeah.
and they were very keen on this as well. We worked with their agronomists. They gave us some technical support in terms of how we could likely make this work, and they're very keen on sharing some of our results. So they're going to share some of their equipment with us. Again, it's all about partnerships.
True enough. So that gets us to the 2-year mark. Now you can talk about whether you're going to go for another run again. Please, if you would, or was it?
Absolutely. I really enjoy getting out and seeing kind of the beauty of nature.
Sure.
And one way you can do that is to go for a walk on a trail. And the faster you walk, the more you get to see. And if you run, then you get to see more. And if you run really long, then you get to see even more.
You've thought this out, haven't you?
It's been a while in coming. You know, I started running about 16 years ago, and I started like everybody else with 5K races on asphalt, and that works great, you know. But for me, what I enjoy most is going to different areas of the U.S., like within driving distance, not flying distance.
So you do this once a year, or how often
Several times a year.
Okay, so
right
you
from
definitely will be on a race or two here next
New
year.
York, Ohio, Indiana, and a lot of Michigan. A lot of Michigan has some beautiful trails, outdoor activities, and the trails can go on and on. They have state forests, and every time you go there, you don't have to be extreme like I do. You can just go for a hike there, and they're very happy to have you there. And it's just it gives you a new appreciation for, you know, kind of your role in the whole world when you can sit out at night and see stars all around you. The stars is a long ways from cornfields, but you know, it's still the same kind of appreciation.
So I guess the point there is obviously this year it probably was a wash. There's nothing happening because of COVID, and we're talking in next year hopefully sometime when normalcy comes back as far as those types of group activities. So that's good. Now 20 years. Now what are you doing in 20 years? Are you thinking about being a grandparent, or is that scary thought?
Well, I do have 3 girls.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen at some point in time. I would relish that thought when it happens.
Yeah.
I would relish the opportunity to kind of share some of the things that I like. You know, like going for a canoe ride, you know, sitting out under the stars, you know, even walking through a cornfield, you know, and maybe one day they'll even teach me how to use an app, and we can go identify trees as well.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Well, that's a good story, and I'm just glad we had a chance to sit here with you guys today and talk about things agriculture, talk about things in Huron County here, and the kind of things the Au Conservation Authority is doing. Did I say that right? Ausable?
Ausable.
Ausable. So you can tell I'm not local. My goodness, I'll have to Ausable. Okay, I can get that. Okay, listen. Nonetheless, I'm just so glad you guys could come out today, and I just want to thank you so much for being part of our show today here on the CKMS Radio 102.7, the Agriculture Show, and just thanks so much.
We're very pleased to have this opportunity to share our message too. So we want to thank you for the opportunity to do that. It's, as we were talking earlier, we don't get an opportunity to share in this kind of media very often. Yeah. So we'll look forward to doing this again.
All right. Well, folks, we'll see you in 6 days and 22 hours for another episode or a repeat episode. And if you eat this week, thank a farmer, and if you're a farmer, thank a consumer. And with that, we'll see you later. Bye for now.
This is Ross Wilson with the Ausable Bayfield Conservation. You're listening to the Agricultural Show on CKMS Radio 102.7 Radio Waterloo. The Agricultural Show is brought to you by the Waterloo Federation of Agriculture. The Waterloo Federation of Agriculture represents the farmer producers in the region of Waterloo. Our goal is to promote the farm community in support of the innovation, hard work, and compassion that is emblematic of the region of Waterloo. The WFA strives to bring together the policy needs of the farmer with the needs of society. Hi, I'm Ross Wilson. You're rocking it with CKMS 102.7, found at radiowaterloo.ca.
That's great.